Vediamo adesso com'è la Germania che ha attivato invece questi meccanismi un pochino più corretti nel settore che ci compete di più, quindi questa mattina quello del sistema Cappotto, dando la parola per farci un pochino il quadro della realtà di questo settore in Europa al dottor Ralf Pasker, che è il direttore dell'Associazione Europea.
Buongiorno, and sorry that I will continue the speech in English, but you will see the slides in Italian. And it's always difficult after such a vital presentation like Monica did, but I will continue, and I think we have mainly the same messages to spread and to share. So let's start with just a little introduction of our association. The European Association for Ethics, EAE, is, let's say, the voice of ethics in Europe. So we gather 11 national ethics associations. There are some candidates at the moment, and I'm quite lucky about that situation. We have 4 major insulation materials associations among our members, and nowadays 6 supporting members from the industry and from important institutes. And thus we represent about 80% of the revenue done with ethics all over Europe, and in total we represent, I think, more than 400 single companies if you add all the members together, and most of them are small and medium-sized enterprises. So we play really an important role for the economy and yeah, in Europe. I think I will skip those slides. I just want to thank Cortexa for being invited to this presentation here, because I think it is important to have this strong relationship between member state level and European level, because finally everything has to fit together, European legislation and regulation and the corresponding regulation at national level. Yes, those are our members, and those are our new elected board. And as you can see, Werther Colonna is one of the board members of the freshly elected board of the EAE, which we elected, I think, 4 weeks ago in Vilnius in Lithuania. So what are the objectives of our association? As you can imagine, is mainly being the voice of ethics in Europe and to promote the use and the benefits of using ethics for thermal improvements of buildings envelopes, because we play a real important role in that game. And to give you an impression which important role ethics already play and could play in the future, I collected some figures about the European ethics market. To give you an impression, currently the total market volume of ethics is about 160 million to 180 million square meters all over Europe. Most of the business is done in the Central European countries, which I think is clear because ethics were invented in the German market and then spread to Switzerland and Austria, and then the surrounding countries started to adopt this solution. And we have a significant increase in Eastern European countries, fortunately also in Southern European countries, and we also see developing markets in Western Europe and in the UK. So the market is already increasing, but it could be much bigger, and why I will show you in the next slides. To give you an impression about European-wide, 80% of the market of ethics is with EPS insulation, so polystyrene insulation, 15% roughly with mineral wool insulation materials, and 5% with other insulation materials. Yeah, those are the market shares. You can probably have the presentation. If you like, you can distribute it to participants. We see some developments we see a significant increase of installation thicknesses all over Europe. Now it seems that there is an average installation thickness of 100 to 120 millimeters all over Europe, so that seems to be the main part of the market. And we see significant developments in insulation materials, so new EPS materials, new mineral wool materials with improved lambda values, and we also see the development of other insulation materials. I only mentioned here phenolic foams, PU foams, wood fiber. So those are the ones we deal with in the European standardization. For sure, at the moment, those are niche markets, but I think in the future we will see a larger variety of materials. And what we did a couple of months or 1 year ago, we analyzed existing studies about the role of energy efficiency in Europe. And we analyzed around about 30 studies existing in Europe. And the key findings are that without significant increasing number of energy efficient buildings in Europe, political goals to improve energy efficiency, to fulfill environmental objectives cannot be achieved. So I think Werther already mentioned those European 2020 goals for the year 2020, and the European Commission currently analyzes how far we got, and the prognosis is that we will fail to reach these objectives. And currently already the 2030 objectives are under discussion, and to my opinion they are not very ambitious. So please take care at national level and wherever you can do it, that those objectives for the future will not be lowered, because otherwise we cannot fulfill those objectives. The building sector, we found out, is one of the major industries to support these political goals, to support the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce the consumption of energy, because households, private households, accounted almost 70% of energy consumption in Europe in 2009, and this can be reduced significantly. And we already saw the figures. I think the figures in Italy are almost similar to the average figures we have in Europe and also in Germany and other countries. So about 40% of total energy consumption in Europe is consumed by private households, and from that energy consumption, the by far majority comes from heating and cooling of buildings. And this can be reduced significantly by the using existing technologies. So studies say by deep renovation, it can be reduced up to 80%, not only by the using attics, but in combination with other measures like, for example, insulated windows and so on. So it can be reduced, and what we need for this reduction is already available on the market. And most of European building stock is quite old. More than 1/3 of the buildings all over Europe are older than 60 years. And that's a huge potential for refurbishment. Because if you look at the energy consumption related to the age of the building, we can easily see that old buildings have a really incredible energy consumption, because in those days energy was cheap and energy consumption did not play any role. So people in Europe started to think about reducing energy consumption in the 1970s after the first oil crisis. Then the first regulations were introduced in several countries, but there is still a huge potential available. And if you summarize the existing potential, so this slide is missing here, but you can easily reduce the energy bill of households by almost 3 billion euros per year. And that's significant to my opinion. Another important message is, because we wanted to know why this potential is not used at the moment, we recognize that many people do not really recognize the importance of energy efficiency and are not good informed about the energy consumption of their buildings. So one key message is we must tell people about energy efficiency and energy consumption of their buildings. They are used to have those figures and labels with electronic devices, for example, with their cars, and now we have to create awareness regarding their buildings. So yeah, that's I think what I already mentioned, and this has also a significant effect on the comfort they have in the building that can be increased by thermal renovation. We increase the values of such buildings and rentability of those buildings, because if we look into the future in 10 years, in 20 years, when energy prices are higher, it will be much more difficult to rent a house with high energy consumption. So it makes sense, if you want to renovate your house anyhow this year, next year, then to improve thermal performance of the building at the same time. I think Monica also mentioned this. We have the curious situation that we have large dependency on energy imports in Europe. And instead of decreasing this dependency on energy imports, in fact, it increases throughout the last decades. And if you look at the origin of our energy imports, you will easily recognize that most of our imports come from regions that are, let's say, not politically stable. I think I need not mention Ukraine, I need not mention Iraq or whatever. So it makes sense to become more independent from energy imports. And this can be easily done by reducing the consumption of energy. Yeah, that's what I already mentioned, that the goals are not ambitious enough, and what is even worse, that even frontrunners in Europe, let's mention Germany, the refurbishment rates of the existing building stock are too low. So we need in Europe to fulfill the objectives, a renovation rate of about 3% of the existing building stock. So that means 3% of existing building stock have to be renovated per year to fulfill the objectives. And the average in Europe is less than 1% at the moment. And each year we lose will increase the problem to catch up with the objectives. So our demand is really to politicians take care that this thermal renovation is really supported. For sure, we need investments for that, and I think we need some more innovative measures to catch up these upfront costs if you do the investment. In the end, thermal renovation clearly pays off. So there are many studies that prove that fact. And what we recognize that stimulating thermal renovation finally also pays off for the gross economy. In Germany, there was a study analyzing the effects of financial support by the government, and they found out that each euro spent by the government to cover the upfront costs for investment generated 3 to 5 times more incomes, tax incomes for the government, and reduced the costs for unemployment. So that is really an important thing, and therefore we think that thermal renovation, investments in thermal renovation can really be a job machine creating jobs. especially in those countries where the unemployment rate today is very high. And unfortunately, we have many countries in Europe with high unemployment rates and even worse, incredible unemployment rates among young people. And we should give young people a perspective. And as construction business is always local, we can create those jobs on a local base and improve the economy at national level or even at regional level. So the key message is the construction business, and we with thermal renovation are a big part of this construction business, can be a job machine and can be, let's say, the social way out of economic crisis in many member states. And this politicians should keep in mind when thinking about energy efficiency. The main findings can be found in our European Energy Saving Guide that can be downloaded from our websites. There you can find all the details, all the messages, all our proposals, and we will update this next year to get in contact with politicians and create an awareness that this is really an important topic. And I think now I will come to an end. Attics are well-proven energy savers. The first attics were installed in the late 1950s in Germany, later on in Switzerland. And now, this is an estimation, about 2 billion square meters of attics have been installed all over Europe with pretty good experience regarding energy efficiency, regarding lifetime expectations. So they have really approved. And imagine those systems save energy, save CO2 emissions year by year, and this is an incredible amount of energy saving annually. So let's push forward energy efficiency, and we will do from the European Association the best we can do. Thank you.